tying in what you both said, I think one of the biggest things is, as a man, we're often told that we're the provider, and that's kind of my biggest issue with court and divorce and all that is right. It's like, oh, the father's supposed to provide and financially provide, and I think it's often missed that like a father's job is not just a financial providing.
Yeah.
Because if we're providing financially, we're not there.
Yep. Present.
Involvement, right? Our kids need to learn and see these other aspects. Like my daughters are going to look for a future partner, and whatever that partner, whoever that partner is, like how I treat my fiance is what they're going to be looking for in a partner. So does my guy open the door? Does my partner open the door for me? Like, okay, right? I'm constantly bringing flowers home for my fiance, right? I want them to see how they should be treated.
You are now tuning in to Kickspot with Jinu Park and Migs.
And we're back here at the Kickspot. Today we are in a different scene, different venue.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Is this our house, Migs?
No, it's not.
It's not. It's not. Unfortunately, we don't have houses yet.
We just borrow people's houses for our episodes.
Yeah. This isn't an Airbnb.
No, it is not.
But we got a special guest. He's invited us over to his place.
Yes.
And who is your guest, Migs?
Today, our subject is going to be pretty awesome. We're going to be talking about fatherhood. I've been looking forward to this. Me and my boy, I'm going to introduce him in a sec, but we've been trying to make this happen for the last couple of months. Yeah. Finally made it happen. What is it, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday.
You've been excited to talk about fatherhood for what reason?
I wanted to bring him because I just felt like Charles is probably, as far as a father figure that I would want to model, and I would kind of do the same thing he would do once I have kids, so he'll introduce his whole story and stuff. I mean, again, I'm pretty excited. We've been friends forever. But let me introduce our guest today. His name is Charles James Threatt III.
Hey.
That's the full name. He is also a high school counselor, DIY extraordinaire as well. And also he claimed himself as the original, what was that, Charles?
Beautiful chocolate man.
That's not what you said earlier.
I'm pretty sure that's something along those lines.
But yeah, so we're gonna be talking about that. We're gonna talk about like how he was dealing with being a single dad for quite some time. He's actually getting married pretty soon, so congrats, my brother.
Congrats.
Thank you. Charles has 2 beautiful daughters. Yeah. And he's also going to introduce those 2 to us and hopefully just shed some light on what it's like, being a father, right? So, yeah. So let's get it popping.
Let's get this popping first.
Oh, yeah.
These drinks were sitting here.
Let's cheers.
Getting a little thirsty this morning.
Yes, I was.
Squeezed.
Freshly squeezed?
He squeezed the entire orange bag with his hands.
With my bare hands.
Damn. The whole carton?
That's why it's salty, huh?
That's pretty good. Right. So GQ, also what I like to call him. We've known each other for a while. We've known each other since 7th grade. I don't even know what year that was, 2002, 2003. One of those. Yeah. You were my first ever African American friend.
That was your first friend here. What
First friend. Period. Wow. I guess.
Period.
Yeah. He claims that every time. But
I was like, hey, you want a friend? I didn't have any friends.
Are
either.
you from the Philippines?
I didn't even know where that was.
Yeah, he
Are
did
you
it.
Sponsored?
Yeah. How did you get here?
Oh gosh, I had my whole like bowl cut haircut. Back in 7th grade.
Man.
Can we not talk about it? But anyways, yeah. So me and Charles go way back. Went to high school together as well. Separated like around college. And he got with his girl. Yeah. And they had 2 beautiful children. And as seeing him grow and seeing him raise, his daughters, all the posts on Instagram. I mean, you guys have like a TikTok thing going, I mean, it's one of the most adorable thing that I kind of look forward to on IG. But I just wanted to have this episode to really focus on you because I see you as like a great dad, and not a lot of people kind of take pride on being that, you know. And there's also like a negative stigma, right? Like being an African American, you know, father, like not kind of being there, you know. But in your case, it's completely different. You're very engaged with your girls. I mean, they're your world, and you show it on a daily basis. So, you know, let's start off like, so how does being a dad feel?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I mean, gosh, it's like there's just this immense responsibility that it's no longer about yourself anymore. And I think it is a change. It's a change in mindset because you are the example always. And so it's not like, I don't care what the outside world does. It's like how I act and conduct myself as a father, as a person, is what they're gonna do when they go out in the world. And so like when they're at home with me, they're practicing how to be treated by other people and how they're gonna treat other people. And so everything I do is under a microscope, whether I think it is or not.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's a blessing and a curse, right? But I think there is, like, if you're chosen to be a dad, especially of daughters, there's a huge responsibility you have. So I take it with the utmost pride and sincerity.
What were you like pre-fatherhood? Like, were you like wild and crazy? Because I don't know the context behind it. So, I mean, I view you now and I'm like, okay, everything seems very proper. You know, were you still that type of person and then became a father and it was different, or?
Yeah, no, I was never wild and crazy.
Nah.
Okay.
Why y'all looking at me like?
I mean, you know me. So,
Yeah.
No, I was never wild and crazy. I've always been the, like, kind of go-to friend, the person that people would talk to. I was always friend zoned in high school.
Yeah, he was.
But everyone would talk to me, so it didn't matter, right? Yeah, so I've always just kind of been really clean cut. My dad was a Marine, and so, you know, at age 3, 4, I was running my own bathwater and learning how to iron my clothes. So I've always kind of been really, like, kind of meticulous and regimented. But once I had kids, like, the only thing that really shifted was now it's like another human that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So not too crazy.
No, and I don't.
No, he really wasn't. I mean, he was always somewhat proper, somewhat.
Somewhat. I mean, I like dancing and doing those kind of things. But
Yeah, you never did anything, I think, out of, like, I was like, oh, that's out of character for Charles.
yeah,
You know?
so.
Yeah.
Now, are there things that, you know, when your parents are raising you, things that you were like, man, I would never do that, like raising a kid, and then now you're like, oh man, I'm exactly like my parents?
Sure. That. Oh man. They often say, like, you know, apples and trees, right? Or like, you know, the way you were parented is how you'll parent, or you'll parent the opposite. And my story is a little different. My parents were never married initially. They had me, and so it was my dad, my mom, and then they split when I was like 2, 3.
Okay.
And my dad actually got custody of me, which is very rare and very unlikely. And so he got full custody of me. My mom was supposed to kind of pick me up on the weekends and do like certain holiday things. And she had struggles with, you know, alcohol and drugs. And so it was from that standpoint, like, I was like, I don't want to do anything like my mom did. Right. And so I never did. I didn't really touch alcohol or drugs. It was just like, that's not my thing. And then at the same time, like, I had my dad, who was really, you know, structured and strict, didn't really talk about feelings a lot. You know, his phrase was, learn this now because one day I won't be here. And when I was a senior in high school, he died. And so, you know, I had like all these like little lessons and things that my dad would teach me. But the one thing that I felt was missing, and I even talked to my stepbrother about this one day, that I was like, do you ever recall dad saying, I love you? And he's like, well, yeah, dad loved you. Of course he did. I said, no. Did you ever recall hearing dad say, I love you? He's like, well, I mean, off the top of my head, no, I can't recall him saying it, but I'm sure he said it. I was like, that's the difference. You would know if someone said, I love you. Mm-hmm. And it's not that, again, it wasn't that my dad was a bad guy. It wasn't that I didn't know he loved me. I never heard my father say, I love you. And so that is something that I've carried into being a father. That I make sure that I'm intentional with my daughters and letting them know that I love them, letting them know, like, even if there's a fight, if they're like fighting with each other or they're being disrespectful, and they get punished, you know, I come back to it and I'm like, hey, no matter what you do, I still love you and I'll always love you. And so it's this like learning how to take in those things that my dad taught me, take in the things that my mom, you know, because my mom always said I love you. Whether she was on drugs or not, you know, she always made it a point to say I love you, but then the behavior didn't follow.
Yeah.
Right. And then I had a father whose behavior was there, but there was no verbal. And so you live in this dichotomy, and I'm always like, gosh, like, which parent loved me, right? How do you know what love looks like if behavior and words don't match?
Yeah.
And so trying to do both. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is like, okay, do I show up for my kids? Am I verbally saying things? Am I sitting in those feelings with them, right? And kind of doing both sides. That's what I've really learned about how my parenting style has changed. And
So, you know, with that said, was there another, like, or any other person that you kind of would look to for guidance that helps shape how your fatherhood is today?
Yeah, my uncle Mike, he is a dad. He has 5 daughters.
Damn, 5?
Yeah.
How's he handle?
And we won't go through the story about that, but you know, my uncle, and he was in the military as well. He was a retired Navy. He has been one of the hardest working humans I've ever met. And he has raised his girls, and he has shown how to show up even when you're not here, right? Because he'd get deployed and have to do things and be on ship for months at end. And so he was very intentional about his time when he was home. He was doing things with his kids. And when he was deployed, he'd call, he'd write whenever he could. And I just really, even for me, you know, he would sometimes pick me up on the weekends when my mom wouldn't. She didn't show up, he'd pick me up. He would cut my hair, you know, he'd always get me new shoes, or, you know, oh, here's some old shoes of mine that don't fit me anymore, you know. And so it was like a big brother, father figure that I watched how he parented girls specifically. I remember when I was young, I mean, I'm probably 2 to 4 years older than my cousins, my oldest cousin of his, and my aunt and him would show me how to brush hair. And so, like, I knew how to brush hair. My ex-wife did not know how to brush our daughter's hair. And so I would brush the girls' hair. I would do their hair, and I still do their hair, you know, daily, getting them ready for school. And I'm, how you guys want to do your hair today? And like, sometimes they find a picture and they I want to try this. And so it's like, all right, we'll do it. We'll go for it, right? And so it's this thing where, like, I'm not afraid to do the mom things, right?
Yeah.
And I saw that from my uncle. He knew how to do his daughter's hair. He wasn't like, I don't need necessarily a woman to do this for me or play that role. I'm dad, and dad should be able to do and wear all these hats.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the people that I for sure took a lot from.
That's what's up.
Now, I'm going to take it more personal. This is a question I always ask people that have kids.
Yeah.
Were they planned or were they not planned? Because I feel like for me,
That's a
I
good
don't think
question.
my parents
Planned
like,
you?
planned me.
Yeah, nobody planned you.
Well, I know for sure. Because my mom had told me that the doctors removed like an ovary or something like that from my mom.
Really?
So they told her that she would never have kids.
Oh, no way.
And so the year after, you know, she was in the hospital and all that, and all of us, and she lost a lot of blood. Like, she was like 8 hours in labor or something. And for my sister, so she had to go through surgery. And then the doctor, the same nurse that was there that helped my mom, like, she passed out in the bathroom.
What?
She was still there. So she was like, hey, something's like in my stomach, like, really hurts. Like, I'm trying to figure out if it's like the ovary that was taken out. And then they did some examinations. They were like, oh my gosh. And she gave her a hug. She's like, you're pregnant.
Whoa.
So I know for a fact I wasn't planned. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, in that situation.
He's trying to say that he's a miracle.
I'm a miracle baby.
Right
I mean,
yeah, no.
You can't plan greatness.
Yeah, that hair is a miracle standing
let's
up. Let's say that.
let's focus on the podcast for me now.
Dang.
But I wanted to know if your daughters were planned.
Yeah, both of them were planned. My ex is definitely a planner, and so, you know, we both work in education. She wanted to make sure it lined up with, you know, going on summer break or going on, you know, before the start of the school year. So both
crazy.
kids were 100% planned. Like
That's
it was
so-
like
yeah.
if you have sex on this day, baby could be due on this day. And so she had a roundabout.
You guys had like a detailed plan.
She had a detailed plan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it executed on timing?
Yeah, one kid was born in March, so that meant she got her 3 months off of maternity leave, and then she went into the summer.
Wow.
And then the other was born September 16th, which was weird, hopefully for the start of the school year before school started, so it was like a week later.
Right.
But yeah, second was born September 16th, and she took the whole first 3 months of school off.
That's weird. I mean,
yeah.
the timing of when your kid is born is also very important. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I was reading a book on timing, and they said that depending on when you're born, that's pretty much like what your favorite sport is.
Really?
I thought that was interesting
That's
too,
interesting.
right? Or like the rate of success is a lot lower if you're like the youngest one
Oh.
in your grade.
Okay. Okay.
Because you get to do things last, so you don't get your driver's license, so you don't get to experience life
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
more. It was an interesting like study that was done by like a psychology professor, but
yeah. And I'm younger. I was born in October, so
October as well.
there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started, but the school system we were in, we were allowed to go to school early, and so I graduated at 17.
Yeah. Well, I mean that I think
Even
experience-wise though.
Yeah, no,
that
but
would mean
I
that
didn't-
you
I
felt bad
wasn't
because
driving.
I wasn't driving
Yeah,
either.
no.
My friends, when they were 18, they got to do stuff that was like legal, and they
Yep.
were buying like scratch tickets. That was like a big deal, and
was-
I'm like, who cares? You know? But then right when I turned 18, that's the first thing that I did.
100%.
Like, you know,
100%.
and then went to college. Like
Yeah, yeah.
everybody was 21. I had to wait in college while
Yep.
everybody's out in the bars. So
Oh, yeah.
the experience was a lot later. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But your daughters were planned
Yeah.
through that entire thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
So question for you. So let's fast forward. At one point you were a single dad.
Yeah.
At one point. You want to kind of talk about that, like how big of a change that was in the beginning, and then how did you kind of pivot in? How did you adjust? During that time, because I saw it.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
like I was there throughout that journey as well, and there are difficult conversations that you've had with me that when you were opening up, and I just kind of want you to share how, because I just felt like the way you handled everything. I mean, the girls are amazing, right? And I give you a shit ton of kudos, fam. But just kind of shed some light on how you did that.
Yeah. The divorce is never easy. And I don't recommend it for anybody. Like everyone has their own situations, so to each their own. But with our situation, it wasn't like there was like this big infidelity thing. It was like we were two people. We got married at 21, and we had a lot of pain and trauma and stuff that we didn't necessarily deal with prior to getting married. And if you're familiar with the Enneagram, she's a 3 or 3, and I'm a 2-3. And so
Explain a little bit of that.
yeah,
to
so
our audience. Yeah.
the Enneagram basically is like a personality and inventory, and it's through numbers 1 through 9. And so you can be like a helper, or you can be an achiever, you can be a challenger, right? And so we both bonded, I feel like, over our 3, which worked really well, because at the end of the day, we're a great team and we're really efficient. We get stuff done, and so we were able to kind of bond through that, and through everything we did, it just kind of went back to what's the goal? What's the goal? And so we kept like kind of piecemealing to make it work, and then it didn't. Right? We had kids. It changed a lot of dynamics. She had some family stuff that happened, and it changed a lot of her. It changed her perspective on relationships and marriage, and we couldn't get on the same page through trying to. I was trying to convince her to do counseling. She didn't want to do it at first, and she wanted to do it. I was burned out, and so it's like, how much can each person carry? And it got to a breaking point. And so the hardest part was, well, what about the girls? Like, what's going to happen with the girls? And I think it could be more detrimental to stay in an unhealthy marriage and model an unhealthy relationship for your kids than to end the relationship in a healthy way and show them what a healthy relationship or healthy adult looks like. Because maybe you're not in a relationship after, and so you're just a healthy adult, and showing them what that looks like. And so through this process, I have tried to be consistent and still show them love and respect for their mother. So like Christmas, you know, her birthday, Mother's Day, I'll send her a card or some flowers, or let the girls pick out a gift for her, to continue showing them love and respect for their mother, because she always will be their mother, period. And we spent 10 years together, and so she will always hold a special place in my heart, because we grew up together, right, you know, and we created these two humans that need their mother to be the best person she can be, and they need their father to be the best person he can be, regardless if they're together or not. And so allowing both of us to kind of, as we separated, you know, to grow and find ourselves again in whatever way that looks, and find future relationships. And so through that, I've done a lot of therapy. I'm in therapy still, working through a lot of, you know, what were the things I was missing? What was my role in it? What was her role in it? How could I have responded differently, right? And it is all things that we learn from our families. How we go into conflict, how we fight, how to fight fair. And I think that, especially right now where I'm about to get married again, like my fiance are in couples counseling, and that's the one thing that we are like pushing for, is how do we fight fair? How do we communicate our needs, and respect and understand, you know, we both have needs. How do we both get needs met, without shutting down or escaping and pushing away from one another? I think that's been the biggest growth point for me, because it's allowed me now to also parent different. And so, you know, the biggest example was the other night, the girls, we were praying for dinner, and the girls were super hungry, and so they didn't want to pray. And so every time we like close our eyes, then all of a sudden I hear like a fork, or I hear like cups, and I'm like, hey guys, we're praying right now. Okay. And they'd be like looking around. I'm like, girls, come on, like, you need to be respectful. Like, let's just do this. And they just kept, and I like, finally I just shut down. Like, I didn't know how to have that conversation. I felt like I kept saying it over and over again. And, you know, so dinner, we finished praying, whatever. And then we eat, and I just was shut down all of dinner, and I could not find words to say, like, I'm hurt right now. I'm disappointed. Like, did I fail as a father by not explaining the importance of praying and like why we do it? And so it's this whole thing like I'm going through, but I'm not blaming them, because they're kids, right? And so we get there, I say, hey guys, you need to go get your clothes up for tomorrow. I'll be upstairs to say goodnight. And so like my fiance was sitting there, she's like, you need to talk to him. And I was like, what? She's like, you need to talk to them about what you're feeling right now. Like, they need to know that like you're hurt right now. You felt disrespected, kind of what the importance is. And so like we went upstairs, and I just was like, hey girls, like I was really hurt. Like really, I felt really disrespected, because I feel like you don't understand why we pray. And I thought we've talked about this, so maybe we haven't. And so I explained why we pray. I explained that, you know, my role as a father is to teach and guide. And, you know, like when we talk about discipline, I talk to a lot of friends and parents about this. It's like discipline comes from the root disciple, and disciple means to teach. It doesn't mean to hit your kids or beat your kids. It means to teach your kids. And so it's this idea of like, when I discipline my kids, it looks very different, because I'll sit down and talk to them and teach them and walk them through what it is, what my expectations are, and what I should be doing and modeling for them too. And so I just said, you know, I'm just kind of really disappointed. Like, we've talked about this. I asked you multiple times to stop and just like let us do this. It takes 30 seconds to pray, and you guys kept playing. And so we kind of sat there, and they both like looked really sad. And I went to say goodnight to my eldest. I was like, all right, good night. I love you. Like, I'll see you in the morning. And she like looked at me really sad and said, you know that I love you no matter what, right? She's like, I know. And I just started crying like immediately, because like, again, I wish I would have heard that from my father.
Yeah.
You know, because we got disciplined by our parents, and I got the belt. So I, you know, but so it's like, I was disciplined, but I never, and he would always say, you know, I'm doing this because it's important, and you need to know your lesson, and like, this is what you did. And he would explain why he was spanking me, but it was never like, and I love you still, but it was like, I knew it was because he loved me. And so it's sitting in that place of explaining, you know, why I was disappointed, what happened, and then saying, you know, but I still love you no matter what. And so I think that's where I'm at right now as a father, as a parent.
You brought up that, you know, you're, I mean, obviously if you're praying with your children or your daughters, that you're teaching them the Christian faith.
Yeah.
And typically, you know, I consider myself a Christian. I don't think I'm the best Christian. I always prep people on that. It's like, oh, he's a God believer. No, I believe in God, but I should practice a lot more, you know?
Sure.
And I forget to pray all the time.
Yeah.
But in the Christian faith, typically when you are a single father or get a divorce, that's kind of looked down upon.
Yeah.
So was there certain circumstances in there that when you're going to church, it's like, oh, Charles, he's the one that got a divorce, or like,
and it felt like that. And I mean, there were people I felt like I lost a lot of friends. People just stopped talking to me or communicating with me. They pushed me. Initially, they were trying to push us to stay together, which I was fighting for initially. And then once I switched, all of a sudden, like, everyone disappeared. And so it was like no one was really supporting me when I was fighting for it. And then as soon as I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore, it was like they were all gone too. And they were like pushing against me for giving up or letting go, right? Because I don't feel like I gave up. I feel like I had to let go of something that was unhealthy. And so, yeah, it felt like, you know, you're failing, you're doing this wrong, you know, and it felt like I lost a lot of people in that circle specifically. And there was a huge part of trying to reconcile and give myself peace of mind from it. And I remember sitting in my office one day and I was talking to a colleague and I just said, you know, I just don't know if God will still love me. And she was like, absolutely. You think you get to set circumstances on if God is going to love somebody? Like, you are that special? Like, you get to tell God if he loves you or not? Like, come on. And that was like that. Thank you. Like, I needed to hear that. And, you know, we all fail and stumble and trip and no one's perfect. And so it's like, as I've continued to walk, I still continue to walk in that way. Because it's bigger than me.
Are you still at that church, or did
so
you
I
move
left
to
the
different
church?
Yeah.
That church.
How long ago?
I left that church like two years ago, and we started going somewhere else, and we were going there for about a year and a half, and then I ended up moving to this house, and my fiance and I were talking about it, and we decided, like, let's go check it out again.
The same church?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Oh, is
interesting.
that where you're going
So
today?
we're back. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We're back at that church, and it's like nothing happened.
It's a fresh, clean start.
Wow.
Yeah, like, it's weird. Everyone that was there still there, and they're friendly, and
Yeah.
it's weird. It's
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
weird.
yeah.
Did your ex-wife go there too? Or?
She did, but she doesn't believe in, like, doesn't have a faith background anymore, and
Got it.
anything like that.
Got
So
it.
yeah, she doesn't go there anymore.
Got it. I could see. I mean, like, for me, for why I questioned faith a lot.
Yeah.
You know, especially like when I was going through high school, college, like, you know, and things would happen at the church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, man, you guys are Christian. You guys aren't acting the Christian
Sure.
mindset that I thought.
Absolutely.
And then I would see them at the bars and clubs like, afterwards, and I'm like, you guys are here? Like,
yeah.
I'm here. I know why I'm here, but
You know, and I
interesting.
think, yeah, and there's, like, you know, semantics and, you know, what does it look like? And it's like, well, can you drink if you're a Christian? Like, Jesus drank wine. Like, you know, like, you can argue any direction on this, right?
Yeah.
And I'll always come back to, like, what is your heart in it? What is, you know, how are you treating other people? And are you choosing to love? Like, I think that's the biggest thing that it talks about in scripture is, like, at the end of the day, are you choosing to love, and are you loving the way Jesus would have loved somebody else? And that's it. And that's what I live by. And I put that to my girls. Like, you're fighting your sister right now. Why are you choosing to fight your sister? Like, would you push your friend at school? And she'd be like, no. I'm like, so why are you pushing your sister? And they're like,
That makes sense.
she made me mad. I'm like, but what did she make you mad about,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
oh, she took my toy. So if your friend took your toy, would you push him? No. Okay, then. Like, this is
Yeah.
Let's talk about this,
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah,
Okay.
choosing love.
So, you know, speaking of, like, you know, teachings, you know, with the girls.
Yeah.
Can you talk about a little bit more of, like, do you guys have certain, you know, girl dad traditions, activities that you guys constantly do? Like, you know, like, what are some of those stuffs?
I mean, we do our TikTok Tuesdays.
TikTok
every Tuesday.
TikTok Tuesday. I love that.
Tuesdays, yeah.
So every
It's
Tuesday.
consistent too.
Is
It
that
is.
a
Yeah.
trend?
Well, it's us.
It's their trend.
Hey, I like it.
No, it's fun.
Yeah, so every Tuesday at my youngest daughter's preschool, we have like this little office that we dance in front of, and sometimes there's people inside and they're just laughing at us. And my girls love dancing and doing gymnastics and stuff, and so they're like, Dad, like let's do a dance video. And so we do dance videos, and it started almost a year. Gosh, it's been at least a year minimum, and so we do that every Tuesday now. And if we miss it, they are not happy about it.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like, Dad. And like on Monday, they're like, okay, today's Monday, tomorrow's TikTok Tuesday, right, Dad? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, all right, we got to find a video. And so like we'll sit down and look through and find a video, and I'm always like, okay, is this like appropriate song? What part of the song can we use?
Yeah.
Some songs, you got good beats, so you're like, all right, but we'll just use this part of the song. And
No Megan Thee Stallion.
right, you know what I mean? So we do that every Tuesday. Girls love gymnastics, and so we got a little gymnastics set up and pad and tumble track in the back,
cool.
and we'll be doing flips and teaching my oldest to do a back handspring right now, and she's only 7, so she's just loving it. And so we do a lot of gymnastics. Tuesday nights is our family night, so we've been watching a show on Netflix called Family Reunion, and I think that's been the biggest game changer for me and the girls, because it ties into a bigger story, but it's Tia Mowry's in it, and she plays a mom who's married to a ex-NFL player, and they basically moved to the South to stay with his family, and so they're learning about their black family, because I think they were living in like Seattle or something, and so they weren't around any black people, right?
Yeah. I had one black kid in my school.
Right?
It was Charles in my school.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's the story of the kids like learning about black culture, and that was something that I felt like my girls missed out on a lot, and myself too, right? And growing up in Orange County, there wasn't many black people.
It's true.
I didn't really fit in with the black kids, and I didn't fit in with the white kids either, like necessarily, because I wasn't.
You fit in with the Asians.
I did great. Y'all were so accepted to me.
He's black. Oh, come here.
Bring him over here. Come over here. And so that's been really cool, because my girls can see, we talk about the show, we talk about the history and the things that they talk about in it, and some of it goes over their heads and the jokes and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like we're purposefully teaching them about black culture and black history, and having conversations during the show, after the show, a few days later, they'll talk about it. And that's been the biggest thing, again, where my ex-wife wasn't the biggest fan of my family, and so we didn't spend a lot of time with my family.
What was your ex-wife? Was she black?
She was Caucasian.
Oh, she's Caucasian.
Yeah. And so so since our divorce, my kids have actually seen my family more than they did for the whole 5 years that we were together, like the 5 years of them being born till the divorce. And so that's been the biggest change, is they're seeing their black family. They're spending time with my grandma. Grandma's teaching them to cook, and like she has this family cookbook, and so she shows them, and she has like this giant family tree, and my eldest is like looking at it and like learning about her family history, and so that's just been amazing. Like,
how's like the whole like Black Lives movement? Like, are you teaching them like what's going on and the reason why it's been so big as far as for the movement? Or
I mean, as much as I can. Again, they're 7 and 5, and so it's it's helping them to see that we're different, we're seen as different, but we're the same, right? At the end of the day, we're all skin and bones. We all are born, and we all die at some point. But at the same time, there are people that aren't choosing to love, that aren't kind, that are very broken people. And the phrase hurt people, and I think these people are hurt, and it's been something that's been going on for a really long time, and people are tired of it. And so I'll explain it like, when you keep saying, Dad, Charlie's bothering me, and I'm like, okay, so at some point you get tired, and what do? You push, you fight back. That's kind of what people are doing right now. And so it's explaining it that way, right? And saying like, and I'll be like, I choose not to do violence, use your words. And that's what people are trying to do, is they're trying to speak their words and speak their truth out. But that's where we're at. That's where the world is at. They're saying, this is enough. We've had enough of what's been happening for so long that it's time for change.
Mm-hmm.
You are currently a counselor.
Yeah.
And you're a counselor. What's interesting is, about 15 minutes ago, you had told, our listeners that you're also getting counseling.
Yeah.
As well too, which I find very interesting that a counselor would also get counseling.
Oh yeah.
Can you guide me through that part of it and the reason why you decided to do that?
Well, we can't fix ourselves, right? If we only talk to ourselves, all of our ideas are good ideas. So, and especially if we don't have friends that are like close that actually like call us out and like, you know, sit through life with us. It's good to hear somebody else's perspective. And so that's one. In recognizing, and being, when you're in a relationship, you kind of refine each other. I think you kind of like sharpen, and iron sharpens iron, right? And so you have this person who sees you and really sees you. I'm a person who's more introspective. And so if she says, hey, you were really short with me, or, hey, I felt like that was unfair, I don't typically go back and be like, well, you're being unfair. I try to sit down and be like, okay, what was unfair about that? Like, what did I do? What could I have done differently? Because at the end of the day, I'm going to choose love. Mm-hmm. And I'm choosing this person to spend the rest of my life with. And so I want to be able to communicate effectively and hear them and understand them and let them feel heard. And so I think, there's that aspect for my relationship, processing my own childhood and trauma and stuff that I went through to be a better father. There's that aspect. And then as a therapist, I hear stories every day, stories that I don't get to share with anybody because I carry other people's story. It's a privilege to hear and be a safe space for somebody to talk about their life. And, but I carry that. I've had one client so far who's died, and I have to carry his story. His family doesn't know his story. Nobody else knows these parts of this person, and I carry that for the rest of my life. And so I need someone to talk to about those things.
How do you get that? I mean, a lot of times when you go to counseling, I mean, I've gone to counseling before, and it's like a lot of negative things. So you're carrying a lot of negative weight, and you as a counselor, how do you combat that to think positively, like in the world?
My faith is a huge part of it. And knowing that there's hope, the fact that they're there and looking for help. I truly believe in what I do. The therapy modality that I use, that I was taught by a phenomenal therapist, his name's Lance All, and then he was taught by even greater therapist, Terry Hargrave, and it has not only changed my life using it, but the lives of the people I counsel. And so even in the midst of their darkness and sitting in that darkness, knowing that we even have just this moment of aha, or, oh, that makes sense, or, oh, I've never thought of it that way, that's my hope. And there's sessions where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I got nothing. And they stump me, and I'm just sitting there like, gosh, like, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? And at some point, they may say, and then this happened. And I'm like, whoa, did not see that coming. And I primarily work with teens. I work with a lot of teenagers. I have a speaking arrangement in a couple weeks where I'm going to talk to parents about teens and anxiety. And so my primary focus is teenagers and helping them to become healthy adults so that they can have healthy relationships and then have healthy kids. So if versus being a therapist on just adults, they're already having kids, and now I'm like, oh, we still have the kids to fix, right? We work on the teens, they can become healthy adults, have healthy relationships, and have healthy kids. That's the goal.
Are there certain types of kids that you see more, as in, like, I want to relate it to more like income levels, like if is there like a low income level, is there a certain nationality or race that's a little bit more than others?
I mean, right now it's primarily where I live is primarily Caucasian, but that's just kind of where I live. I do have a few other, I have a lot of people reaching out to me because I am an African-American male therapist, and there's not that many of us. So, but at the same time, there's not that many therapists who work specifically with teens. And so those are kind of the two demographics that I have as I have continued to grow my practice. But it's just because that's what's here. right? And so, but I do get people reaching out or virtually, hey, you know, I heard that you're an African American therapist. I'm looking for one. And so I'm like, cool, like, great.
So we've learned a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, we've spoke about, you know, your past and how you've dealt as a single parent. We've talked about some of the process you have with the girls. Yeah. Kind of, you know, shifting gears. The future is exciting for you, and the girls. You're getting married.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I'm more curious of like, what do you guys have plans moving forward? I know wedding's next month.
Yeah.
It's coming up
real quick.
Coming up real quick, you know, and the bachelor party about to be lit. Sorry, I didn't even mention that. But yeah, so like, any plans for the girls? You know, with Kristen, like, what do you guys have cooking up? You know,
Hey, my fiance is one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met.
yeah, I haven't seen you smile like this in a while, bro.
Yeah. She's a good human, with just a really kind heart, and is always putting people before herself, which is a detriment, right? Because you have to still take care of yourself, right? You have to put your oxygen mask on before you put your kids or somebody else's. But you know, we've known each other for, I think, 6-7 years now. 7 years. We actually were hired together. So we met 7 years ago. We both got hired
At the same
at
school?
the same school.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were part of a group of like 7 people who got hired together, and so we all were like friends. And she would come to Christmas parties, and she kind of met the kids as they were born, and you know, and then you know, one day she reached out after my divorce, probably a year after, and said that her mom was really sick, and she didn't know anyone who went to church, but she felt like she was being pulled or called to go to church. She just needed something different. And she's like, you're the only person I know. And I said, yeah, come with us, like, whatever. Like, there was nothing there. So I was like, yeah, whatever. And started going to church with us. And after church, I would invite her over to have brunch with the girls and I and my old roommate. And just started hanging out a lot. And I was like, kind of like, I could see her being a good mom. And I was really set on getting a vasectomy. I was like, I'm done. No more kids. Like, this is it. And I went to Palm Springs for a weekend and for a training. And she had called me, and we were just chatting. Like, again, still friends, and just talking about life. And she's like, yeah, I just really want a kid, and like, I want to get married. I want to have a family, you know. And I was like, yeah, I get it. Cool. And so hung up, and then I went for a walk, and I was walking through downtown Palm Springs, and I saw a couple. They're in their mid-30s, and they were walking towards this restaurant, and I saw the husband put his hand on the back of his wife or girlfriend, whatever she was, as they enter the restaurant. She was pregnant, and I was just watching it, and I was like, gosh, like, that seems so cool. I don't know why, like, that was the word that I was like, right. And I was like, I want that. And then, like, I had this weird God moment, and God was like, you're not done. And I kind of was like, haha, you're funny. I had already, like, talked to the vasectomy doctor. I had, like my friend's neighbor is the vasectomy doctor that you go to. So he was like, yeah, if you call me, I got you on the list. Like, don't worry about it. And in my head, I'm like, cool. Like, I'm set. Like, I'm ready. And so I was like, huh? Maybe I'm done yet. It's like, yeah, that's funny. And kept walking, and I saw him again, the same couple out of the restaurant. And he was like, you're not done yet. And I was like, whoa. And then I got back, and she was like, hey, let's go grab some food. And I was like, her? Really? I think she's beautiful, right? So I was like, I mean, I'm not mad at it, but, you know, she's a good person. My kids know her. Like, all right. And, yeah, so we're fast forward. We're here. We're getting married in like about a month, and we're super excited. We're going to go do some dessert tasting today.
Yep.
And,
Nice.
It's we got a big future plan for ourselves. We're trying to think about, like, just future career-wise, like, as a couple, what are our couple goals? What is our family goals? And so we've talked about wanting kids, like more kids, and kind of like we've moved into like a home that's like a home.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, we're trying to just be good parents for the girls. We're constantly sitting down and going back and forth about, like, okay, so how did this go? How did this conversation with the girls go? How could this have gone better? What are things we need to do different, right? And so it's just really collaborative.
Well, that was my next question. Is like, what's the dynamic with Kristen and the girls, right? Ever since from like day one to now,
Sure.
like what's that like? And
Yeah.
how have the girls adjusted to her? How has she adjusted to the girls?
Initially, London was not having it.
Really?
Oh yeah, like we would.
I can see that.
She was
Yeah, I can see that.
protective,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we had our dad and girls. It was me
Yeah.
and my girls, and then Kristen kind of came into the picture, and she'd be at brunch, and the girls were fine if she was at brunch. And then once like we like started talking about like, okay, we're gonna start dating, it kind of shifted, and so there was this night we were sitting on the couch, and we were gonna watch a movie, and I want to say Kristen sat next to me, and London goes, "I want to sit next to Dad." So she sat like, right in between us. And I was like, all right, whatever. And so I went to put my arm around London, and so I could hold Kristen's hand. And London like pulled my hand and was like holding my hand with both of her hands.
Wow.
And I'm like,
It's
all
cute,
right.
but like
yeah. Right? But I was like, all right, like how do I? And then, so we're like, okay. And then, another night we were trying to do the same thing, and I was like, I'm gonna sit next to Kristen. You can sit on this side. And she's like, no, I want to sit in between you. And I was like, no, we're gonna have boundaries here, and so you can sit right here and you can hold my hand. She's like, but I want to hold your hand. And I was like, okay, so I gave her a hand. She's like, I want both hands. I was like, no, you don't get both hands, right? And so we're just like having this like you're not my dictator. Like you're not telling me what to do. Like,
Yeah.
And again, it was this conversation like Dad's relationship with Kristen is different than Dad's relationship with you girls, right? You are always going to be my daughters, and I will love you as my daughters. And Kristen is my partner. She's my person. So like, I'm going to love her different than I love you guys, but it doesn't mean I love you any less. There's different love. And as abstract as that concept is, my oldest she was like, all right, okay, I get that, right? And so from there, it was funny. The girls play dress up a lot, and they go, we want to have a wedding. And we're like, okay. And they're like, so we're going to take Kristen, and we're going to get her dressed up for the wedding. And then you go put a suit on, and we'll choose your suit that you're going to wear, and then you guys can get married. And we're like, all right. And this was like 3 months into us dating.
Wow.
Oh,
and
wow.
So they went to Kristen's closet and picked out her dress and some shoes and took her in the room, and they put my suit out. And so I got dressed up, and then they went and got my roommate, and they had him get a shirt and tie on. And then they got all dressed up, and they did Kristen's makeup, and we come out, and they're like, okay, now you guys can kiss. And we're like, all right. So they like gave each other a little kiss, and then they're like, okay, you're married. And we're like, and like from that point, it's like she's always been here. They love her. They would prefer to hold her hand than mine. They would sit with her. They'll be like, Kristen, can you do her hair? And I'm like, what happened to Dad doing your hair, right? And they're like, well, yeah, but Kristen's more gentle with the brush. I'm like, y'all got tender heads. Calm down, right? But now I do it in the mornings right now. So, but yeah, they've fully embraced her and love her, and it's been really neat to see their dynamic, and like they're excited for the wedding. They're like, can we be part of the wedding? And of course. And so, yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I've learned within this conversation about fatherhood is just like, I think your level of involvement. I think your level of involvement in every aspect, whether it be having a conversations with your girls, whether it be disciplining them, whether it be, finding new ways to be creative with them, involving your partner. I mean, I think that's the main word for me is involvement. And I love how you put things in perspective, even though they're young, to make them really understand how like a social setting is, or how the world is, and how to treat people. And that's the thing. That's why I wanted to have this conversation is to really, focus on that and really give people like a different kind of sense of what a role model father is, right? So, because that's kind of how I would want to be. That's how I would want to teach my future children. That's how I want to approach things. I learn a lot from you, and that from the way you, how engaged you are with them. I would hope to be like that as well. When I have kids, I mean, hopefully, a whole basketball team, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
you gotta have at least
and
5.
they'll pay for my bills,
Right?
You know what I'm saying?
I want 4 so they
there
can
you
say,
go.
Dad, I'm gonna pick you up for the 5th. I told everybody that.
That's a good one.
I told everybody I want 4 kids so they'd be like, they have
We
to
need a
use
5th.
me.
We need a 5th.
Yeah.
Oh, Dad's
I
here.
might be old, but Dad's still gonna play with you
I
as a
love
5th
it.
player.
But JP, what did you learn today,
I think for me, just looking back, it's really faith.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
you know, like that's something that I've always struggled with for a long time. I look back at some of my past relationships. I'm like, if we both walked the same path together, then maybe things would have been a little bit different. Sure. And you know, I've had like couples counseling and all that stuff before, but then walked away from faith. So it doesn't matter about me getting the counseling. It's just, you know, spiritually and all that. If I had, you know, I'm Christian, so God involved in the conversation, I think it would have been a lot better for me too. And whatever religion that people, you know, go for. I mean, there's different values that different, you know, religions really bring. But I think just looking back at our conversation, faith has played a really big part and brought everything right back together for you. So
100%.
you know, it's a great conversation to have.
No, we love it, man.
I think, like, just kind of tying in what you both said, I think one of the biggest things is, as a man, we're often told that we're the provider. And that's kind of my biggest issue with court and you know, divorce and all that is, right, it's like, oh, the father's supposed to provide and financially provide. And I think it's often missed that, like, a father's job is not just a financial providing.
Yeah.
Because if we're providing financially, we're not there.
Yep. Present.
Involvement, right? Our kids need to learn and see these other aspects. Like, my daughters are going to look for a future partner. And whatever that partner, whoever that partner is, like, how I treat my fiance is what they're going to be looking for in a partner. So does my guy open the door? Does my partner open the door for me? Like, okay, right? I'm constantly bringing flowers home for my fiance, right? I want them to see how they should be treated, because that's what they should be looking for. They shouldn't be looking for a guy that, like, throws a glass jar across the room and says, but I threw it because I love you. No. That's not the kind of guy you're looking for. That's not the kind of person I want you to be looking for, right? And so how I treat my partner is how my kids are going to look for a partner. And my involvement with them shows that. If I'm always working and I don't have this intentional time to connect and talk with them, how am I providing in all areas of their life? Mentally, spiritually, you know, doing gymnastics in the backyard with them, right? Showing them, like, physical health and all those things. Like, I need to be showing them all these different aspects and being involved in their lives like that. Doing, you know, I'll take a half day off work and go and read in my daughter's class. I'm like the only dad who read last year or 2 years ago in kindergarten. I showed up at pajama day. Everyone thought my pajamas are dope. I have a full setup, right? But, like, that's the kind of things I do. And then, the faith thing. You know, I have a good friend. His name's Jeremy, and he told me this idea. Like, oftentimes when we have our life and we're going, like, you know, down this path. And if you have a faith, like, you're pointing towards God, right? But when we get in a relationship, we often do this and turn and face each other. So we stay stagnant. And the goal is not necessarily to face each other, but to continue walking this way, because eventually you're going to get closer. If you're pointing towards God, you're going to come to this pinnacle of, like, we're focusing in the same direction still. Because as soon as we turn this way, this is where we're at.
It's a great analogy.
And it was like, wow, I did not think of that, right? And so continuing to focus this way and loving and being kind and, like, focusing that way, you're going to get closer. You have no choice to.
Yeah.
And so I think that was, like, the biggest point. And I just really want to thank, I have a good friend, Tim Fay. He is a guy who was divorced, and he was one of the first people I met up with after. And he said, the best piece of advice I got was have a list of what you want. Have a kind of like a timeline, a framework of, like, what you need, because he had 2 daughters too when he got divorced. And he said, I knew what I wanted in a person, what kind of person I wanted. And I knew I wanted to be married within a year. And he said he found his person, and, like, they're married. They have a kid now together. And, like, it was weird because the timeline, like, in my head, my hypothetical timeline, everything matched up with Kristen. Everything. The way he said it, the way, like, I thought about it. And, like, I had talked and dated a few other people, but, like, she was the one, and it worked out that way. So I just,
Well, Charles, we learned a lot from you, and we're gonna, I mean, I could talk to you.
Yeah, we could have another hour of this, to be honest.
Whenever I took a personality test, it said that I should be a counselor, and then I look at you and I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. But every test I always take, it's always like, counselor, you deeper question a lot of things, and I'm like, I could do that, but no.
Let's have some more conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. But we want to, you know, obviously promote your situation, even though there's nothing really where you're, like, trying to promote something, but we like to promote our guests anyway. So do you have like an Instagram handle or social media or anything like that?
Charles Threatt, and that's it. Just my first and last name. You can find me online. I am a therapist, so if anyone's looking for, you know, someone who has a kind of different perspective and ideas and thoughts on things, you know, they can look me up.
100%.
First and last name, and yeah.
All right, perfect. And then we're obviously gonna throw Charles in our Instagram as well too, at _Kickspot.
Yep.
And then we're all on all the podcast forums, YouTube. Just, you know, type in Kickspot and you'll find us out there.
Yeah, make sure you guys like, subscribe, give us some comments, you know, tell us, you know, what you think of this. I mean, we thought this was a pretty deep conversation in regards to fatherhood, so we'd love to get your feedback. But other than that,
let's just cheers.
Let's just cheers.
All right.
You know, you guys are almost out, you know.
I don't know what you're doing.
But Charles, thank you again. You know, we love you. Looking forward to your wedding.
Yes, sir.
You know,
Appreciate
I'll probably have him as a +1.
Go.
I don't know
What you
yet.
gotta do.
You know, we'll see.
No, we'll see about
You
his
know.
situation.
We'll see.
All right, we out.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Kickspot.